Samantha from The Fiction Fairy, and today I'm bringing you my March wrap-up. So I cannot believe March came and went as quickly as it did, but I'm so excited that the snow is finally over, that April is finally here, and that the sun is finally here. Although I'm not a sun person, I am so happy that there will be no more snow in the future of the East. And I can only thank the heavens for that, because Lord knows the snow is getting to be a bit much. So I am so excited about that, and my excitement for April seems to be shown in the amount of books I was able to read in March. If you remember back in February, I was able to read 4 books. I was super excited about that. But somehow in March I was able to read 8 books. I'm not really sure how that happened, because I had a ton of schoolwork, I had my internship, I had my substituting job, I had just regular household wife things, and I had family come to visit, but somehow I was able to read 8 books. And I think that that was because I read books that I either really, really loved or I liked and they weren't horrible, so I didn't really have any super duds in here that kind of put me into like a mini slump. They were all pretty good, so I can be thankful for that. So, because I read 8 books this month, I am going to have to look down a little bit because I'm reading it off my Goodreads just to keep track of the books that I did read. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. Just as a side note, all the books that I mention here are going to have their own individual reviews here on the channel. So if anything sounds interesting to you, please check back sometime this month to see if the review is up, so that way you can get my thoughts more in depth about the book. I'm trying to do a review on each and every book that I do read, and so just check back later on this month for the reviews of these books. The first book I read this month was First Date by R.L. Stine. This is a fantastic book. It was just as good as when I was younger. This is a reread for me. There was murder, there was mystery, there was an ugly duckling girl, there was 2 guys. It was just all going down in this book, and I just loved it the same way I did when I was younger. It wasn't as scary as when I was younger, but I still really, really liked the book. The next book I read was Between the Sea and Sky by Jacqueline Dollimore. This had sirens, mermaids, was very reminiscent of the Little Mermaid movie. I think that if you like the Little Mermaid movie, that this might be a book that you would enjoy. This was my first mermaid book, and it was an overall good read for me. The next book I read was The Here and Now by Anne Brashares. This book was a time travel book, and it was heavy on the time travel and the technological aspects. I thought it was an overall decent read. I really love the concept of the story. So I think that if you're interested in time travel or technology, I think that this might be a book that you would enjoy. Another book I read this month was Hopeless by Colleen Hoover. This had been recommended to me over and over again by you guys, and I picked it up. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed this book. It definitely gave me more than I thought it was going to give me. It definitely was more than I thought this book was, and I was so glad that I did pick it up. I'm so glad that you guys recommended it to me, because I really did enjoy this book, and I intend on reading more Colleen Hoover books because of this book. I also read Far From You by Tess Sharp. This book also kind of took me by surprise. This had best friends, mystery, this had murder, this had drugs, this had LGBT, which if you guys don't know, that's lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender community. It wasn't a huge part of the book, but it was a part of the book that was intricate, and it was just an overall terrific read. It had a lot of feels. It left me very emotional, and that coupled with Hopeless left me just a crying, babbling mess after reading those 2 books. So I would definitely recommend that book to anybody who kind of wants an emotional read, but with mystery and best friends and kind of like real life situations going on also. The next book I read was Sleep No More by April Lynn Pike, and this had to do with oracles set in today's settings. So you had Greek mythology, a little background story on that. You had oracles set in today's world, what's happening with them, mystery. It was just an overall great concept for a book, and it was a pretty good read the way that it was delivered. I love oracles, I love Greek mythology, and I think that if that is something that you like, or if you like April Lynn Pike, I think that you might enjoy this book. This is my first book from April Lynn Pike, and I thought it was an overall pretty decent read. I also read Stolen Songbird this month by Danielle Jensen. This is my first dip into fantasy. This had kingdoms, princesses, trolls, magic, mythology. This was just an overall action-packed book. People who read fantasy, I give you a ton of credit because there's a ton of characters to keep track of, a ton of storylines to keep track of, but at the end of the day, when you get them reading it, it is just fantastic. It just leaves you wanting more, and that's what this book did for me. So if you like trolls, if you like magic, if you like kingdoms, if you like myths, I think that this would be something that you would like, especially if you're just getting into fantasy like I am and like I was. It really turned me on to the fantasy genre. And the last book that I read this month was Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. And this was a reread for me, and this was about two best friends, occupied Denmark, Copenhagen. They're occupied by the Nazis. It just told a story of friendship, love, overcoming diversities, overcoming tragedies, and how people really just pull together for the greater good, and what happens in these people's lives during probably what is and what was one of the hardest times in their lives. It was just an overall great read. It was an overall feel-good read, and it was just as good as it was when I read it when I was younger. So if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you guys have read any of these books, want to read any of these books, please leave everything in the comments below so we can have a little discussion. If you guys have any other suggestions for any of my future months TBRs, please let me know in the comments below, because recommending Hopeless was absolutely fantastic. I am so happy you guys recommended that to me, because it was a really, really great book and I would not have found it otherwise. So thank you so much for that. And I've watched a ton of you guys' March wrap-ups, but if I've missed any, please leave them in the comments below, because I love watching them and seeing what you guys have read this month, and see if we've read any kind of the same books, if you have any of the same reviews up, things like that. So thank you so much, guys, for coming by the Fiction Fairies March wrap-up, and I look forward to putting up my April TBR and talking to you guys, and thanks so much for coming by, guys.